A single steel roller coaster can cost $25 million to build. That's more than the price of 100 average American homes combined for one ride that some guests will experience for 90 seconds and never think about again. Now, stretch that logic across an entire property: runway long parking lots, underground tunnels so employees can vanish and reappear without breaking the illusion, fake rock work that costs more per square foot than granite countertops. Somehow, this insane math doesn't bankrupt anyone. It built one of the most profitable industries on the planet, but it has also bankrupted almost everyone who ever tried to copy it. So, which is it? A gold mine or a trap? Let's find out because the answer isn't what you think, and it starts with a single terrible Sunday in July. July 17th, 1955, Anaheim, California. Walt Disney is standing inside a park that isn't finished. The asphalt was poured that same morning, and it's so hot outside that women's high heels are sinking straight into the ground. There's a gas leak, so part of the park has to be sealed off. A plumber's strike back home forced Walt to make an impossible choice between drinking fountains and working toilets, and he chose the toilets. Counterfeit tickets are flooding the gates, nearly doubling the crowd nobody planned for. Reporters are calling it a fiasco live on national television. Disney employees still call this day Black Sunday. Here's the part that should be impossible. Within 2 months, this disaster of an opening day was turning a profit. That single fact is the key to this entire industry, and almost nobody outside of it understands why. A theme park isn't selling you a ride, it's selling you trust, and trust compounds. Once Disneyland earned it, people didn't just come back, they brought their kids, then their kids brought their kids. Walt Disney accidentally invented a business model that could outlive him by 70 years and counting. But before we get to why that model works, we need to talk about what it actually costs to build one, because these numbers get uncomfortable fast, and they explain almost everything else that happens later in this story. Universal spent an estimated $300 million, though the exact figure has never been officially confirmed, building a single ride called Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. One coaster, a number close to what it costs to produce an entire Hollywood blockbuster, except the movie only has to survive one theatrical run. This ride has to survive millions of guests climbing in and out of it in Florida humidity for decades without a single structural failure. Zoom out further, and the numbers get worse. Universal's Islands of Adventure cost an estimated $1.6 billion when it opened in 1999. Shanghai Disneyland cost roughly $5.5 billion. A single themed land inside an already existing park, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, ran past $1 billion on its own. So here's the question that should be bothering you right now. Why would any company set that much money on fire before a single guest walks through the gate? Because the gate isn't the product. Everything past the gate is. Once you're inside, the park stops selling you tickets and starts selling you something closer to an addiction, split across four separate income streams, each one exploiting a different weakness in how humans make decisions. Admission is the one you already understand, but even this is rigged more than you'd guess. Disney uses dynamic pricing, the same trick airlines use, so a Tuesday in February can cost under $90, while the week of Christmas pushes past $150. You're not paying for the ride, you're paying for the calendar. Then it gets sneakier. Walk past the gate and you're a captive customer, and captive customers get charged captive prices. A bottle of water that costs the park pennies to buy in bulk sells for $5 because outside food is banned and there's nowhere else to go. That policy sounds unfair until you realize it's one of the highest margin decisions in the entire business. Merchandise runs on a different kind of manipulation entirely, not logistical. A stuffed toy that costs a few dollars to manufacture sells for 30 or 40, and parents pay it without blinking because they're not buying a toy, they're buying proof the trip happened. Gift shops sit at the exit of nearly every major ride for exactly this reason, positioned at the exact second your adrenaline is highest and your judgment is lowest. And then there's the stream that changed the entire industry: intellectual property. When Universal licensed the wizarding world of Harry Potter, they didn't own a single character in it. J.K. Rowling and Warner Brothers did. But building a land around someone else's story turned Islands of Adventure from a distant second place park into Disney's first real competitor almost overnight, with attendance reportedly climbing more than 30% in year one. Universal figured out something Disney had known for decades. You're not selling a ride, you're selling a world people already love and charging admission to walk inside it. Four income streams, four different psychological levers, all working on you at once, most of the time, without you noticing. Now, here's where the story turns, because for every dollar walking in through those revenue streams, there's a second, mostly invisible war happening in the background, and it's brutal enough to kill parks that don't see it coming. Start with insurance. A major park can pay tens of millions of dollars a year just to protect against the possibility that one guest gets seriously hurt, because a single major lawsuit can cost hundreds of millions and permanently damage a brand built entirely on trust. Then there's maintenance, and this one never stops. Ever. A coaster isn't like a car you service twice a year. Bolts loosen daily, steel fatigues under constant use, sensors fail. Rides get shut down for full refurbishments, costing millions of dollars, not because something broke, but specifically so nothing ever does. Then there's staffing, on a scale most industries never touch. Disney World alone reportedly employs more than 70,000 people, making it one of the largest single site employers in the entire United States. Every one of them needs training, uniforms, and wages in a business where a single rude employee can undo years of brand building in one bad interaction. And then there's the cost nobody can negotiate with at all: weather. One hurricane can shut a Florida park down for days, wiping out ticket sales, food sales, merchandise, and hotel bookings all at once. Parks in colder climates don't even get a choice. Many simply close for 4 or 5 months a year, meaning they have to earn an entire year's profit in half the calendar. This is exactly why the graveyard of failed theme parks is so much bigger than the list of survivors. Without Disney's global brand, without year round warm weather, without deep enough pockets to absorb one terrible season, most parks that try to copy this formula never get the chance to fail slowly. They fail fast. Which brings us to the most important question in this entire story. If the costs are this brutal, why does anyone keep paying and keep coming back year after year, even as prices climb every single time? The answer isn't about rides at all. It's about something psychologists call the peak end rule. Humans don't remember a full day accurately. We remember the single most intense moment and however the day ended. That's it. That's the whole memory. So parks design entire days around this one weakness, building the nightly fireworks show and the closing parade as the emotional payoff the entire visit was engineered toward. So you walk out remembering pure magic instead of the 90 minutes you spent standing in a line earlier that afternoon. It goes deeper than that. Walt Disney coined a term for something called a weenie, a visible landmark like Cinderella Castle, positioned so that no matter where you're standing in the park, you can see it and instinctively walk toward it. It's subconscious crowd control disguised as architecture. Even the smell of certain streets is engineered, with scent machines pumping the smell of fresh baked goods near the bakeries, planting a positive emotional association before you've spent a single dollar. None of this is an accident. This is a business built on behavioral engineering that happens to use roller coasters as the delivery method. And once you understand that, this entire industry starts to make a very different kind of sense. But engineering emotion this precisely is incredibly hard to fake, and the parks that tried anyway make up one of the strangest failure lists in modern business. Start small. Action Park in New Jersey ran through the 80s and 90s with such poorly designed rides and such minimal safety oversight that it earned the nickname Class Action Park for reasons that are exactly what they sound like. It closed in 1996, a warning that guest trust, once broken on safety, doesn't come back. Go bigger. Wonderland Sydney opened in Australia in 1985 with a genuine ambition to become the Disneyland of the Southern Hemisphere. Years of underinvestment and shifting ownership left it hollow, and it finally closed in 2004, its rides left rusting in the sun, a physical reminder that theme parks don't just need to be built, they need constant reinvestment, or they rot in front of the very people who once loved them. But the most uncomfortable failure on this list didn't come from a scrappy regional park at all. It came from Disney itself. When California Adventure opened in 2001, right next door to the original Disneyland, it lacked the deep theming Disney had spent decades perfecting, and for years it was widely seen as a disappointment wearing a Disney logo. Attendance was so weak that Disney eventually spent over $1 billion fixing their own mistake, rebuilding entire sections, including Cars Land, just to restore the magic they'd skipped the first time. If Disney, the company that invented this entire model, can still get it wrong, what does that tell you about everyone else attempting to copy them? It tells you the real product was never the roller coaster. So does any of this actually make financial sense? After the insurance, the endless maintenance, the staffing at a scale most industries never touch, and weather that can wipe out a season overnight, is owning a theme park still a good business? Yes, but only at scale and only for people patient enough to think in decades instead of quarters. Disneyland's theme park division has generated tens of billions of dollars in annual revenue in recent years, often outperforming even their movie studio in raw profitability. Universal's parks, under Comcast, generate billions annually too, and their multi-billion-dollar bet on Epic Universe, which opened in Orlando in 2025, shows the industry is still betting big on decades of future growth, not next quarter's earnings call. Disneyland took roughly 10 years to become the cultural institution it is today. The Wizarding World took years of licensing negotiation before a single brick went down. Every theme park that ever collapsed the same way, by trying to protect short-term profit at the expense of the one thing guests actually paid for. Because in the end, nobody is really paying to ride a coaster for 90 seconds. They're paying for a manufactured memory, engineered down to the smell in the air and the exact spot a castle sits on the horizon, built to make a grown adult feel like a kid again for one single day. That's the real economics hiding behind the steel and the fireworks. And it might be the only business on earth where the product being sold isn't a thing at all. It's a feeling you already had once, being sold back to you one gate at a time. So next time you walk through one, ask yourself what you're actually paying for, because it's almost never the roller coaster.